Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News, and I'm Faisal Rahman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about the devastating floods in Pakistan, which has literally changed everything here, especially in the province of Sindh, which is most affected currently because of these heavy monster monsoon. Almost 33 to 35 million people they have suffered. Over 1,400 have died so far. Hundreds and thousands are still stranded in water in Sindh and other parts of southern Punjab and in Balochistan, as well as in KP. And then on top, as far as the losses are concerned, earlier they were estimating that this is going to be around $10 billion. Now they say that $12 billion worth of damages have occurred, and this is definitely going to go up. Now the main issue is not about the flooding. Yes, that is there, because when you talk about Guddu, or you talk about Sakhar, you talk about Dadu, or you talk about other areas related to this, Larkana even, they are still inundated. And when you talk about villages and a lot of other areas surrounding that particular spot, can you imagine around 14 feet to 16 feet of feet is standing there, and all the villages have been submerged. In certain areas it's 4 to 6 feet, and it's been over 20 days the water is standing there. The real challenge for Pakistan is now related to the waterborne diseases: malaria, dengue, cholera, diarrhea, skin diseases, you name it, and the problem is going to be there. Gastro, a lot of children in hundreds and thousands are suffering from these. Women who are pregnant in Pakistan as we speak, who have been suffering because of these floods, their number is around 650,000. Yes, 650,000, mostly in Sindh and rest of the Punjab. And out of these 650, almost 100,000 women will give birth during the last 2-3 weeks of this month and the first 2-3 weeks of the next month. So they're practically, this is their last or the third trimester. As far as for food is concerned, there is an acute shortage of food, clean drinking water, and on top of that, since there is no shelter, lack of tents, lack of other supplies, and on top, last but not the least, is the medicine. Now, water is the basic requirement, because when you are stranded, the water is everywhere. There is extreme, you can imagine, heat, and due to that, it's not livable basically, and you have nothing to cook. It's totally dependent on the government and other NGOs who are currently supporting. But again, I'll just mention one thing here, that during the 2010 earthquake, because it was more or less about the swelling of the rivers, so most people living all along the Indus, they suffered everything. But this time it's flash flooding, it's heavy monsoon in these areas, around 500% more, so you can well imagine. And then on top there was no preparation, though the Met Office very categorically mentioned that this monsoon is going to be really heavy. But this is what they can do. They can tell you NDMA didn't do much. Now, as always, we had this reactive approach, and we are trying to look forward for money, and whether it's cash or kind. And then the distribution has become a challenge. Vegetable, fruit losses, crops, they have been lost, especially cotton, sugarcane, wheat, rice, pulses, onions, tomatoes, banana in Sindh, dates in Sindh. I mean, it's gone. This was something on which the livelihood of those people were dependent. Now they have nothing. They have nothing to lose now. That is what is the current situation, except for the lives. I hope and pray the entire Pakistan, along with the provincial governments and the federal government, they've put their head down, and after putting their heads down, they should come up with some sort of a viable solution and do something positive. This is what the need of the hour is. But before I, in fact, introduce you to our panelists, our production team has prepared a report. Let's watch that first.
All the institutions of Pakistan, with the appropriate guidance of Premier Shehbaz Sharif, are engaged in facilitating and rehabilitating the flood-ravaged areas and respective affectees. And in this regard, the flood-hit Sagu Bridge in Dera Ismail Khan was reopened to traffic, resuming road connectivity between Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan. On the other hand, the Economic Coordination Committee of the Cabinet also approved Rs 540 million for Utility Store Corporation for supply of essential commodities in the flood-affected areas. Economic Coordination Committee approved Rs 3 billion to National Disaster Management Authority to meet expenditure on rescue, relief and rehabilitation of calamity-stricken population across Pakistan. Meanwhile, Pakistan has urged the United Nations Children Fund, UNICEF, for help in reopening schools in old and new temporary locations in flood-devastated areas, as the United Nations agency's executive board adopted a $900 million four-year country program aimed at the uplift of the country's 80 million children. Speaking at the board's meeting, Ambassador Munir Akram also sought assistance in healthcare prevention of waterborne and communicable diseases and immunization of the children and ensuring food security by providing nutrition for children with the view to provide relief. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres is also paying a two-day visit to Pakistan, which will start from Friday, to express solidarity with the country braving colossal climate-induced natural disaster caused by unprecedented rains and floods. In a statement, Foreign Office spokesperson Asim Iftikhar said the Secretary General's visit will further raise global awareness about the massive scale of this calamity and the resulting loss of life and widespread devastation.
Now to talk about it, let me quickly introduce you to our panelists. We have with us in our studio, on my right is Mohammad Abdullah Deol, water scientist from UNESCO. Thank you very much for your time. And we'll also be talking to Reba Shahid. She is a business journalist. She's going to join us in a little while on the Skype. And we'll also be talking to Ambassador Naela Chohan Saiba. She's also going to join us in a little while. But let me start off from you. Now, so the point is that, yes, food has to be there. Clean drinking water has to be there. There should be a proper mechanism, to deliver these goods. Now, number one, lack of resources. Number two, who is going to do it? Because last time there were many NGOs in 2010 as compared to this 2022 flood. And other than that, if you remember, there was a lot of aid pouring into Pakistan. Even now, almost 50 planes have landed, but this is just a little drop in the ocean. Yeah. Now the real challenge is about the waterborne diseases that really worry me. Because when you talk about cholera, you talk about diarrhea, malaria, dengue. A lot of these kids have got skin diseases, even women, because they are very vulnerable. Don't you think, now the plan should be that, yes, we do understand we are still in the rescue operation, then the relief will start, and then your recovery would be before that, and then your reconstruction. But the point is, sir, that don't you think that now we need to look forward, that this is going to be the challenge? It's not only wheat or sugar for that matter, or rice that you need to provide them. First of all, where will they cook? There is no spot which is dry enough to be. People can't bury their loved ones who have died. This is again a reality, because most of these villages, entire districts actually, they have been inundated. 14 to 16 feet of water, can you imagine? And I was reading another report in which it said, because this is about our honor, so we have left the women in their villages. Yeah. Who's going to look after them? Who is going to look after their safety? Who's going to provide them with food? And on top, now you need medicine at a massive scale. Your take.
Well, this is really sad and of course heart-wrenching. I don't know where to start and where to end, but like you were saying, we should also keep in mind what to do in future. We had, I would say, at least 12 years to prepare for this. It happened in 2010. It's just a repeat telecast. And we didn't learn anything. Okay, we will rescue, we will do the relief thing, and we will reconstruct. And like you were saying, there was so much aid pouring in 2010. Right now there is some, but eventually it will start. When the international community will not start taking us seriously, because we ourselves are not taking us seriously. We are just getting used to this relief thing and not actually no post-flooding. We have only, post-flooding, no pre-flooding techniques. We are just reactive, not proactive. So this is going to hurt us. This is climate change. Do you know it was 80 billion cubic meter of water at the moment in Sindh.
80 billion.
80 billion cubic meter, and Tarbela Dam is 10 billion cubic meter. It is equal to 8 or Tarbela dams in the Sindh at the moment. So what is climate change? It's basically actions, reactions. The way humans act, the nature react. It's simple. You cannot just say, oh, God's angry or something. If you're going to cut down 1 million mango trees, for example, to build a housing society, then what are you expecting?
Yeah.
Yes. Then what are you expecting?
That was DHA, by
yes,
the way.
yeah, of course. We all know about it. So what do you expect from the nature? And if we are not going to give room to the water and we're not going to be ready beforehand, I think we will just wiped out from this planet, probably, or maybe definitely. We should consider, maybe, okay, we have relief, let's say we get all the money that we have lost, we reconstruct all those houses, but what about the suffering and pain of the people, the trauma that's going to be
So
with
look
them
at the current
forever?
inflation, look at the supply
Yes.
chain issue, look at the issue regarding
The skin
Ukrainian war
diseases,
with the Russians. So basic food item that you need in your kitchen
Yes,
is wheat.
yes.
And on top, I'm not even sure that we'll be able to prepare the soil for the next season, because this water is not going to go away that easily.
Yes.
A lot of people told me that the water table has already risen to that extent that the land cannot absorb any more
Yes.
water. It has to be evaporated. Now these are flat lands.
You know what are the problems? The problems are those embankments that we have made, a lot of them in the rivers. Before 1932, we didn't have that kind of issues, but then after independence, we made a lot of barrages and dams. First, let me give you an example of Netherlands. In 1990, they had a devastating flood, and in 2007, they came up with this theory, room for the river, room for the water. So let's have more open space for them to go or to flow, make more drainages and stuff. So that way they have saved their country, and they're about to finish all the project from up to the downstream, I think the end of this year or maybe the next year. So what happened in Pakistan, we made so many embankments. In Urdu we say band. So first we have embankment around the river, then we have embankment about the city, then we made railways, so there was another embankment for the railway, then we made those Manchar Lake and other lakes, so we had another embankment, then we made those private housing society to protect them from the river, we made another embankment. So those embankments, band after band, there is no way for the water to go. There is like a wall, so water want to go from this way, you just have to see another embankment.
And
from
interestingly,
the railway,
water
another.
always
So
makes its
own way.
And
Exactly.
encroachment, the kind of encroachment that we have seen in KP, in particular, in
Yes.
the Sawat and Kalam area. Now, once the river, because there were two major reasons. One was flash flooding. The
Yes.
other was about the climate. If you remember, the month of March was so hot that those glaciers melted and they developed lakes. And once this heavy, monstrous monsoon came, just imagine, look at the flow. This is what we once, I remember in a documentary I saw in Uttarakhand, if I'm
Yes,
not wrong.
yes.
I mean, about 5,000-6,000 people died in that because they had no clue where the water is coming from, and it just took away everything. You name the bridge or anything. Now, technically speaking, sir, over 250 bridges, around 6,700 kilometers of your main highways and roads. And I have no idea so far regarding the railway, but railway is not going to be functional for 3 months. That's what I learned. Imagine, so how are you going to carry those goods to those areas and those people who are suffering? Now that's $1 million question. Sir, if you allow me, we've been joined in by Ambassador Naela Chohan Saiba, a former senior diplomat. Assalamu alaikum, ma'am.
Assalamualaikum, sir. How are you?
I'm pretty good, ma'am. Thank you so much for taking out your time and talking to us. Ma'am, now we are learning that the United Nations Secretary General, he's going to pay a 2-day visit to Pakistan, and on top, he's going to hold meetings with the Prime Minister. Obviously, ma'am, now we are talking about cash and kind, that we need X number of, let's suppose whether it's about medicine or it's about food or it's about tents or it's about other supplies that are immediately needed, but they will also take time, ma'am. Ma'am, don't you think, let me put a very straight question to you, ma'am. What has been done, but we should have been prepared for this. The Met Office, in fact, told the governments that there is going to be a heavy monsoon, unprecedented rains will be witnessed, and that is exactly what has happened. But ma'am, all these political parties were busy maligning each other, and that is it. Not even a single conference was held regarding the overall issue about the monsoons. Rather, it was more about the political issues. And those issues do not even matter to common man, ma'am. Now what? Where do we stand, and how are we going to convince the entire globe that yes, we are again in dire straits and we need money and we need a lot of help?
Well, Faisal, this is an important question. Of course, there are problems within, but when UN Secretary General is coming, we have to look at it in a global perspective. 1/3 of your country is underwater. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, ma'am.
Okay, 1/3 of your country is underwater. That means that this is more than any country could have dealt with. And we must look at it in international perspective. You might recall in November last year in COP26, a lot of talk was done on this. If you look at current situation, the number of people that you were mentioning, 33 million who have been affected by the flood, can you believe it? It is six times more than the people displaced by the war in Ukraine. And it is more than population of so many European countries and also Australia. So we can't take it that lightly, and I think the global north has to take its responsibility. And I think that during UNSC's visit, we have to raise these serious questions with him, because he's a very gracious man, and you recall his remarks that, the rains were like on steroids. And now there's a lot of talk on climate apartheid, because the global north has been exploiting the world for their profits, for their benefits, and then they make pitiful, commitments on donations. Imagine what was the commitment from EU? 23% of the world, pollution is by them. And they had a very miserly amount to offer, which meant about 5 cents pesos per person here. This is not about charity. This is about demanding the rights of the developing countries, and this conversation has to be taken very seriously. Pakistan, yes, you mentioned very correctly, is grappling with economic hardship, all the problems that we are, infested with. But IPCC report clearly, states